AEW did not flee Florida so that they could run a show in Georgia, which had less restrictions, and have more people at ringside. For some reason, what we were talking about, people interpreted it as that. Okay, what happened was they were running in Florida, and they were told no more than 10 people on each closed set. Okay, now, if they were going to flee, they would have fled then, but they didn't. They would have kept running in Florida, and they would have obeyed those rules. They obeyed those rules last week. They had no more than 10 people in the building, which meant, by the way, nobody was at ringside. None of the wrestlers were there cheering on the competitors, okay? But then Florida shut down, so they had to leave. So the place they decided to go was QT Marshall School, because he had a building, and he had a ring, and they could film in there. And Georgia did not have a requirement of only 10 people on the set. The requirement was, I guess, the same TBS requirement of no more than 50. And so they put the wrestlers back in the stands. It was not them fleeing Florida so that they could break the rules somewhere. There were no such rules in Georgia, and they were forced to go to Georgia because they were forced to move out of Florida. That's what happened. Now, with that said, it's so much better. It's so much better with even 4 guys on one side of the ring and 4 guys on the other side of the ring.
There's not even a dozen people out there.
No, and you keep them all 8 feet apart or whatever, except Billy Gunn and his son were like in each other's laps for some reason. Like, it is family, I guess, but, you know, they kept everybody apart outside. I don't know if they gave them like some sort of noisemaker, but there was some sort of rattling thing that they were doing that you would hear like in Arena Mexico. But between the people cheering and the noisemakers, and a big difference is the energy level of the announcers.
Well, also,
compared to NXT. I mean, Sam Roberts was in a fucking coma half the time. Tom Phillips is trying, but it's a one-man show. I mean, it was just so much more lively. And they got 5 more weeks of this, so, you know, it's clear that people don't want to watch empty arena shows right now. They want to watch the news. But, I mean, if we're going to have to watch these shows, I'm so thankful that this show seems so much more alive than the other show. And I hope if NXT opens up again, they're able to do something to bring some life to the show.
All I could think was it was so obvious the difference was night and day on this show 60 seconds in. And all I could think was if I'm NXT or WWE or SmackDown or Raw or WrestleMania, and I understand WrestleMania has been taped, so this advice may go on deaf ears, but in all seriousness, I'm putting guys in rooms or giving them phones or whatever, and I'm setting up speakers on the floor, and I'm saying, call this number and just make as much noise as you can.
Fucking do a Zoom meeting, like the Brady Bunch. Just have a bunch of squares on the outside of the screen.
Noise!
With fucking people watching and cheering or something.
Not in a cavern with every... Anyway, yes, the show is a vast improvement. I like you say, hope we'll get several weeks more out of this, and then who the hell knows. So, Cody and Tony open the show on the floor next to the ring, along with Cody's dog, Pharaoh, who has only shown this one time. Among the people at ringside are the Gun Club, who, by the way, they probably had a match on Dark, but, you know, put them on Dynamite one time. Have them lose in 2 minutes. Just have it be more than Billy Gunn and Son. Jimmy Havoc's out there, Britt Baker, Kip Sabian, a few other people. We have the reveal, I guess some of these were on Dark, but the full TNT Championship brackets. Shawn Spears versus Cody in the first round. Sammy Guevara versus Darby Allin. Kip Sabian versus Dustin Rhodes. And Lance Archer versus Colt Cabana. And Cody makes note of this. His brother is in the other half of the bracket. They could meet in the finals. Tonight on Dynamite, the Natural Nightmares debut. The tag team of QT Marshall and Dustin Rhodes. Lance Archer debuts. Hikaru Shida is in action. And as she is brought up, Cody mentions Joey Janela is the worst at social media. Shida is the best for sure. That amused me. And the main event, Darby Allin and Cody versus Shawn Spears and Sammy Guevara. And our opener, Kenny Omega versus Trent. So on top of, just having anyone at ringside was a huge help. The other thing that was a huge help is this is a much smaller building than Daly's Place. And for this particular environment, it's much better for those 8 people. I think the ring is also smaller. So Kenny was so great in this match. Kenny's a really awesome pro wrestler if you didn't know. Trent's very good. And they went 19 minutes. They teased a time limit draw briefly. Among Cody's great
they were doing the time calls from 10 minutes in.
They teased a time limit draw for 19 minutes. Among Cody's observations on commentary, Kenny Omega using a traditional folk-style grip on his headlock.
Yes, right around the ears.
I'm dead serious. I want a graphical breakdown of the different headlock grips that you can use in pro wrestling. I'm 100% serious from the bottom of my heart. I want them to do a segment on that. Cody talks about how Kenny Omega was number 1 in the PWI 500, and wrestlers will always tell you they don't care, but as soon as it comes out, they got to know where they rake. Kenny does a back chop at one point in this match. Trent's hanging on the apron, and Kenny chops him in the back. And Cody says, that's the most disrespectful thing you can do in this business. Really? A chop to the back is the most disrespectful thing? I wonder how Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa missed that one.
There's still WrestleMania.
I guess there is. They go over to some random post, as Tony called it, the post in this facility, and Kenny picks up Trent and does a fucking throwing powerbomb into the steel, or whatever it is, post. You lunatics. First match of the night, these two guys are kicking each other's ass, Tony notes. Trent makes a comeback, does his own back chop. With 2 minutes left, they're fighting on the top rope, and both guys are slipping around. Trent hits a terrifying German suplex. Thankfully, nobody died. And then Kenny catches him with a V-trigger, hits the one-winged angel, and the 3 count is counted like seconds after the 1 minute warning was aired. So it's a 19-minute and like 5-second match. It probably needed to go about 50 minutes instead, but it was a very good TV match, and I had fun watching it.
Well, what I liked about it, I mentioned last night, is, it's a pro wrestling thing. We're counting down the time. But like 9 times out of 10 when they do this, it comes down to like the last 5 seconds. Oh, we're down to the last 30 seconds. We're down to the last 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3. Oh, there's the finish right there. The last second. They didn't do that.
No.
They teased a time limit draw, but then with a minute left, they did the finish.
Hit his move and won, yes.
Yeah. Now the one thing, I don't know any details about this, but Omega's got a torn labrum.
Oh, dandy.
And there was a spot where he got suplexed on his shoulder, on his labrum, off like the middle rope. And I remember at the time, I forgot about this till just now, but they were counting down the time, and this happened with about 2 minutes left. And they were just rushing, because I guess they really wanted to do the 1 minute thing or whatever. But it felt to me like they were rushing too much, and that's why Omega landed on his shoulder. So hopefully he's not hurt. But I do remember that. Hopefully they're all fine.
I do want to add there was a spot earlier where Kenny does a big dive onto Trent, and he turns to Chucky and Orange and offers a big hug to them. And Orange Cassidy, for the first time I've ever seen, smiled. I think he was caught totally off guard by that, and Chuck had to pull him away. We have a Matt Hardy, Chris Jericho recap. And before I forget, I want to mention they acknowledged this at least on Twitter, and apparently it should have been on the show as well. Matt Hardy now is claiming that he did not, in fact, teleport in last week's Dynamite show. It was an elaborate illusion conspired with the help of Vanguard 1 and his fleet of drones.
Yes.
Holograms.
Great.
So, yeah, it all makes sense now. It's all done to, I forget the term they used, but he found a polite way to say mindfuck Chris Jericho.
Yes.
It's fantastic. Now, they never mentioned it on the show. So if you don't follow AEW on Twitter, you think Matt Hardy can teleport now. We had a Hikaru Shida video, and then Hikaru Shida came out to face a lovely young lady named Anna J. Or as Cody called her, Anna J with 2 Y's for some reason.
Well, I'm not sure why she's got 2 Y's in that last name.
Well, so you can trademark it. That's why the Hardy Boys with a Z.
Well, that's true, but I mean, here's one thing. This is advice to all wrestlers, okay? Yes, if you want to trademark your name, you got to spell it a little bit differently. But sometimes the issue is that when people try to Google you, they can't fucking find you because your name is spelled weird. Yeah. So take that into account when you come up with your name. And
she should then thank Cody for explaining to the fans it's Anna J with 2 Y's. So Anna J, I believe she did more hair flips in this match than Kevin Nash in a month of Nitros. Otherwise, she looked very good. Orange is out there in the crowd now. He's holding up a sign, but the sign is blank because he's Orange Cassidy. Baker is shouting things at Shida and then saying, you can't come near me, social distancing and all this. Jade does a bunch of cradles. Shida catches her in a near fall. Somewhere in here, Cody notes that Jay was trained by QT Marshall and Glacier.
Yeah.
It's an amazing combo, but hey, it worked. The one thing about her I will note is that she went up super stiff for everything. A body slam, a suplex, anything like this. She is a straight line from neck to ankle. She's basically corpses all the way up.
Well, I mean, you could tell she was pretty green, but
sure.
She looks great, and for her first match on national television, she did totally fine.
Yes.
And she had a lot of poise, and like you could watch her for 3 seconds, you knew what her character was. I mean, she did a really good job.
Mm-hmm. So Shida eventually hits her with a Falcon Arrow and wins, and then Shida messes with Britt Baker and her sandwich some more.
Listen to this goddamn sandwich. She was eating it all night. It's a big sandwich.
I was going to say, are you sure it was the same sandwich? Maybe she ate 5 of them.
You guys could have eaten 5 sandwiches. I hadn't thought of that.
We had a John Moxley, Jake Hager video. This ruled because you got Hager saying Moxley is an idiot and a fool to think he can compete with me. You've got Moxley saying, I'm on top of the world right now, but I'm a miserable, pissed-off bastard because of what Jake Hager did to me. You've got Jericho saying, Moxley does everything for the fans. The Inner Circle does everything for ourselves. The Inner Circle is family. If Jake Hager wins the World Championship, it would be the best thing in the world for the Inner Circle. I'd be thrilled about it. And it's basically those 3 guys going back and forth in a round table between the 3 of them. There's a little bit of Sammy Guevara and a little bit, I think, of some other guys. But Jericho says, Moxley's crazy, a maverick, a rebel. And yes, that led to him being world champion. But 3 or 4 days later, it led to us putting him through a table, incapacitating him indefinitely. And Moxley says, you almost killed me, but you didn't kill me. I've trained with Jake Hager. I've ridden the roads with Jake Hager. I have listened to the Jerky Boys for hours with Jake Hager. This man can strangle me. He can separate conscious from my body with 1 shot. And they go to Hager, who's very calm about everything. He says, I've been in the ring with Moxley. I know he's below me. I know he doesn't have the ruthless aggression I have. I laughed and laughed and laughed. Jericho explains, yes, he is due a rematch. He's not going to use his rematch yet. He wants Jake Hager to beat the hell out of John Moxley and win the world championship. We're a family. If Hager is world champion, that's the greatest thing ever. And Moxley, it closes with Moxley saying, yes, Jake Hager's big and strong. He's huge, but he's just another Goliath, and David will have to find a way to slay him. And then the match is announced. It's Jake Hager versus John Moxley for the AEW World Championship in an empty arena match in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What's happening?
Well, there's a couple of things. First, the good stuff. It is now an ongoing storyline. Jericho has mentioned this on like 3 shows now, maybe even more, that the Elite is a bunch of idiots. They fuck up constantly. They hit each other with their finishes. They cannot get on the same page. But the Inner Circle, we never have problems.
That's right.
We are a family. If any one of us wins that title, we all hold that title. We never have any sort of problems. You know where this is going. It's like everything Jericho does, you know exactly where it's going.
Right.
And we have not been let down yet.
Yeah.
Now, it's not. I don't think it's coming soon. I mean, I know it's probably not coming soon because they are on timeout right now. But, you know, maybe it'll happen at Blood and Guts. Maybe it won't. But in the end, they will implode. And it will be even better because these heels are so cocky.
Yes.
They're so overconfident that nothing will ever go wrong in their relationship. That when it actually happens, it's going to make the whole thing even better. Okay?
Yes.
Now, here's a negative about this whole show. Okay? As much as I think the empty arena with a few wrestlers on each side is better than an empty arena with no fans, it's still so much less fun than when you have fans there, okay? Now,
sure.
There's nothing that they can do about that right now. And there's no simple answer to this because if you just do a bunch of meaningless matches, I mean, people are going to stop watching the show. So you have to do some stuff that's meaningful. And they've been building up Lance Archer and Cody. And if you look at the tournament, I don't know this, but I mean, it seems like it's going to come down to Lance Archer versus Cody in the finals. That's going to be a big match by the time they get to it. But guess what? It's a big match on this show in front of no fans. that did like 685,000 viewers this week. And it just sucks. It sucks for WWE. It sucks for AEW. It sucks for everybody. That you've got the debut of Brodie Lee. You've got the debut of Matt Hardy. You've got Jake Hager and Jon Moxley for the title. You've probably got Cody and Lance Archer. And all of these things will be so much better with people. But you're giving them all away in these empty arena matches on taped shows. It fucking sucks. But it's exactly the same as with WWE. I mean, I know there are people in AEW that just wish that we could just stop. Let's just not run shows right now. And when things get back going again, we'll start over again. But you don't know what would happen. You have no idea what would happen. I mean, they may stop getting paid by TNT. The people may not come back. You have to take this risk. But it sucks that so many good things are being given away on these empty arena shows because of what's going on.
All that is true.
Fucking Ciampa and Gargano after 4 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Their big blow-off is in front of no people.
Well, all that is true, Brian, but my bigger point is that both NXT and AEW are promoting major pay-per-view worthy matches as empty arena matches at a time
I'm well aware
every
of
match
that.
in the country is an empty arena match.
I realize that. It's fucking ridiculous.
What is going on?
Well, I mean, to be fair, Vinny, AEW is not doing empty arena matches. They've got some wrestlers there.
They're doing almost empty arena matches.
This match apparently
You
will
are
have
quibbling.
no ring announcer, no announcers, nobody. Just these two men and a ref.
I guess. At first, when they first made that announcement, I actually thought the two matches were head-to-head. I realized at least there are different weeks now, which means I get 2 different weeks of empty arena matches on these empty arena shows. I just don't get it. Colt Cabana joins the announce desk as Cody goes to prepare for the main event. And then we get Lance Archer versus Marco Stunt. And Marco comes out, and his graphic reads, must overcome Archer's 1.5-foot, 156-pound size advantage. We get a Jake Roberts promo on behalf of Archer, taped somewhere, somewhen. It's awesome. Archer's coming to destroy whatever you boys have cooked. He's pissed. Oh, God, is he pissed. Just because I'm smiling doesn't mean I'm happy. You're playing a silly little game. Children play games. We don't play. We are not gambling men. Gambling's for fools. He closes. Cody, maybe you're smarter than I thought you are. Maybe you're smart enough to be afraid. Or maybe your better half is holding you back. I think she wears the pants. And he laughs and walks away. And Lance Archer storms out, murders some random person on the floor. The camera actually missed it, and Colt's trying to explain it's a grip or somebody, and I'm thinking, there's like 9 people in this room. You can't tell me who it was that Lance Archer just killed. He gets in the ring, and I'm telling you, Andre the Giant never had a size advantage this big. They look like different species in there with Lance and Marco. Lance destroys him, he does a throwing vertical suplex, which I'm sure I've seen before, but not like this. He almost threw Marco out of the ring. It's just fantastic. This big giant spinning slam. Marco actually got a little bit of offense, some dives, some kicks and stuff, and eventually Lance cuts him off with a pounce, and all the heels at ringside cackle with laughter. Because heels love it when small guys get beaten by big guys. And Lance does a big giant choke slam, picks him up at 2, hits him with a blackout, which is an overhead flipping slam thing, gets the pin, a 5-star squash match. So Colt Cabana is Lance's first round opponent in this TNT Championship tournament. And he's trying to sound all tough. He says, yes, I know he's a big man. I've faced him in Japan a few times. I know what he's all about. I'm going to use comedy, and I am going to use humor to get a win against Archer in the tournament.
Yes. Comedy and humor.
Are you going to use a whoopee cushion, Colt? What?
He might. We'll find out.
I don't know what's going to happen.
Have you ever watched a Yano match?
I've seen a few.
Yes.
I've seen a few Cabana matches as well. So, in the end, just for good measure, Lance chokeslams Marco out into the crowd onto the best friends. We get a Brodie Lee skit.
Felt bad for poor Marco. Holy fuck. What a beating.
It was a savage beating.
It was a savage, savage beating. But he did his best. What can I say about the young
He
fella?
took a great beating.
Yeah.
So Brodie Lee is a skit. He's in an office room or meeting room with a couple of Dark Order goofs. Talks about how these are confusing times, but we understand how you feel. I was once lost, downtrodden, beaten down, but now I am the exalted one. And he asks one of the goofs to get up and speak. And the guy says, "Thank you, Mr. Lee." And he says, no, it's Mr. Brodie. "Say what I told you to say." And the guy says, "We are one." And one dude is about to stifle a yawn. This upsets Brodie Lee. "Nothing in the world is open," he says. "There is no reason to yawn in my presence. Tiredness shows weakness. Don't you ever yawn in my presence again. Go." So I'm assuming every one of these is a random, petty, small-minded quirk of Vince McMahon.
So far, yeah.
Yeah, and all I know is if the goal of these segments is to get me to hate Brodie Lee and dread seeing him on television, well done. Mission accomplished.
I don't think you're supposed to dread seeing him on television, but you are definitely supposed to hate the guy.
I didn't like it after 1 week. Week 2, for me, it's just completely, I'm over this joke. I'm over the Vince spoofing. I'm just over it.
Wow. I don't mind it. I like hearing about Vince's quirkiness. I like to try to figure out what happened where he threw a glass against the wall.
I watch this show so I don't have to watch and hear about and think about Vince McMahon. It's the last thing I want to think about when I'm watching wrestling.
At least he's not playing Stephanie McMahon.
Well, you got me there. He would be a horrible Stephanie. He really would. Dark Order members 8 and 9 versus the Natural Nightmares.
It's just like the old NWA shows we watch.
Yeah, it's a Cruel Connection 1 and 2.
Yes.
So QT has his Dark Order mask, but he rejects it. He's not going to team with him. Dustin does the stuff in the middle, and a "You Still Got It" chant breaks out, which is funny because it's all his peers. Now, granted, they're all much younger than him except for maybe Billy Gunn. And he does actually still have it. It's accurate. There's no doubt about this. But it's just funny. And he gets a hot tag, he runs wild a bit, and they win with a double-team dominator. So the Natural Nightmares go to the stage, and somebody missed a cue somewhere. I don't know if Brodie was supposed to come out or he was waiting for his music or something. But they're out there on the stage with nothing to do for what felt like about 3 minutes, just standing there. And Brodie Lee comes out, has a brief stare down with Dustin, then moves to the ring. He destroys 8. He stares down 9. And that's that.
You know what's weird about this thing here is that I was watching this match and I thought, man, are 8 and 9 going to win? They can't win. I guess they could probably beat QT, but no way 8 or 9 should beat Dustin. But they didn't. They lost.
Dude, this wasn't even Silver and Reynolds.
No.
It's 8 and 9.
So 8 and 9 get killed. And then the guy that did the job, Brodie Lee, comes out, and he kills this guy with the powerbomb.
Yes.
I'm just watching this, and I'm thinking, okay, so we got a better leader. Like, Luke Harper is a better leader than Evil Uno.
Yes.
Okay, but I'm starting to have a hard time with this. I've had a hard time with it from day one, okay? But now it's like, so why is anyone joining the Dark Order? You're all losers.
Yes.
The story is that if you join the Dark Order, you'll be winners.
Sure.
But, like, they're still losers.
They don't ever win.
And they get beaten up and humiliated afterwards. They're constantly browbeaten by Luke Harper. And, you know, it's just sort of like, you know, any cult, you know, the members of the cult are brainwashed. That's the key. They're brainwashed.
Yes.
They think this is great.
Sure.
Okay? I see no evidence that anybody in the Dark Order thinks this is great. They're all in misery. They joined it because they're miserable, and they're still miserable. You know what I'm saying?
There should be some perks to being in the Dark Order.
Yeah, my point is that, like, they need to get some wins.
Something.
or maybe Luke Harper, you know, like 90% of the time, he's like a very charismatic leader that gives him pep talks and gets behind him. But, like, every now and then you see his crazy dark side. Now it's just like, who the fuck is joining this and why?
They're humbled and berated and often physically beaten pretty much all the time. And then they go there for their matches and they're still not winning.
Yeah, it's just like something's got to change here.
This is a bad cult. Don't join this cult. We then get to the best thing on either show by about 100,000 light years.
Oh, Lord, help me.
We are told, this is important, we are told Chris Jericho sent in one video Matt Hardy sent in another, and our production crew has put these together. That was one sentence that made this whole thing make total sense. So Jericho is in his hot tub at his palatial estate. He's in the tub. He has produced this video for his benefit to let us know his wishes, his demands, his goals. He's in the hot tub. He got a little bit of the bubbly. He pours some into a glass, sets the glass aside, drinks straight from the bottle. Says, today is a holiday. It is April Fool's Day. And I had never met a bigger group of fools than the Elite.
His fucking delivery in the hot tub was just, it was the greatest.
He starts with Kenny Omega, that pumpkin head dipshit. I was frantically trying to write down word for word what he said. I could not do that.
He was going very fast. I wrote a lot of it down, so allow me to do this.
All right, go ahead.
Today's a holiday. Much like Martin Luther King Day honors the great doctor, Veterans Day offers these servicemen around the country, or honors. This is April Fool's Day. I've never seen a bigger group of fools in my life than the Elite. Kenny Omega, the biggest pumpkin-headed dipshit I've ever met. Nick Jackson at home with his head injury and his new baby. Maybe he should stay at home for 2 more years on maternity leave. Have his idiot brother mow the lawn, I believe he said. Mm-hmm. So here comes Vanguard 1. Jericho's burying the Elite one by one.
Don't gloss over this. We cut to Vanguard 1
yes.
vision.
Yes.
So we are now in the sky. It's got like the Terminator effects and everything, and we're zooming in on Chris Jericho's palatial estate.
There's this idiot Cody bringing in Matt Hardy, calls himself Damascus, says he's 3,000 years old. Well, he's going to need another 3,000 years to get over the humiliation the Elite will bring him.
You must use his pronunciation of Damascus.
Damascus. When this virus is over, he says, we're still going to be facing the inner circle at Blood and Guts. So, my point about the delivery is, he's one of those guys where, you know, the words he's saying are funny, but the way he says it makes it even funnier.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So now, Vanguard 1 is directly overhead.
Jericho is like trying to wrap up, right?
Yes.
He's making his final point, and he hears, and he starts to get distracted, but he's like trying to power through. He looks over his shoulder, doesn't see anything. He's trying to power through. Eventually, yes, Vanguard 1 is basically on his shoulder, and he can no longer ignore it.
So Jericho climbs out of the hot tub in a fury. He's in his fucking pants with a belt on.
The belt killed me. I watched this afternoon, so I'd heard almost everything about this. So I knew he had jeans on, but he still had his belt on in the hot tub. Why? Because he's crazy.
Well, I mean, if you, he's always drinking the bubbly. I mean, he's a constant bubbly drinker.
Yes.
So if you're drinking that much champagne, I believe that you're just walking into your hot tub with your clothes on and chilling out there. So he gets out, and for some reason, he starts stuttering all over himself. Like he's short-circuiting. I couldn't figure out what that was about.
There's a reason. He addresses Vanguard 1, says, I knew you'd come. And he talks about their confrontation last week. And he says, I wanted to say that I'm because you see, Brian, Chris Jericho can't bring himself to say the word sorry.
I see.
Now, this is amazing.
I see.
Of all the weeks, we just happened to watch the very first Thunder where Jericho says he's sorry over and over again.
Yes.
Maybe he ran out of sorries in it was 1998. So he can't. That's why he was stuttering. He couldn't say the word sorry.
I got it.
Yes.
So he's got this tiny inner circle T-shirt for the drone.
He still wants Vanguard 1 in the inner circle. Why, by the way?
Yes.
This is part of what makes it all so great. Chris Jericho is such a moron. He wants this drone in the inner circle for some reason.
Well, I mean, the drone is able to hologram images.
That's true.
So, I mean, Jericho could be in 25 places at once if he had this drone.
He could use Matt Hardy as a weapon against him.
Yes. So he's got this shirt on a clothes hanger.
Yes.
Now, you know, how the fuck is his shirt going to fit on the goddamn drone anyway?
Well, the answer is the drone has a loop.
He hangs the shirt
like a zip tie
from the drone, which, by the way, does not bring down the drone. That's a powerful drone.
You think?
Yes. So the drone finally zooms off. Now Jericho's furious. This fucking drone.
2 weeks in a row, this drone has turned its back on him.
He throws the bottle of bubbly. He screams, "Release the hounds!"
Yes.
Bunch of fucking dogs.
Chris Jericho's dogs come running out of the house trying to chase the drone.
Of course, they can't get the drone because the drone's in the air and the dogs are on the ground. Yeah.
Yes. And Jericho is screaming, "You'll regret this, Vanguard! I'm gonna get you! I'm gonna get you!" And the last shot, you just hear him mutter, "Little bastard stole my t-shirt."
I just love that you released dogs to catch a drone.
Yeah.
What?
The best part is he was prepared to release dogs.
Oh, yeah.
He's got
maybe that drone will land.
He's got he didn't know it was going to be a drone, but he has a squad of hounds at his palatial estate ready to be released at a moment's notice.
Sure.
Moment's notice should any unwanted guest appear.
Well, you should have fucking crows.
Maybe that's next week.
Yes.
We'll see where they go with this. At this point, I have no reservations about what they might try to pull off here.
Dude, for those of you, by the way, that are too young to understand this, when I was a little kid, bald eagles were endangered. But now, because we, did whatever to do whatever, you know what I'm saying, Vinny? Now there's bald eagles all over the place.
They're doing much better.
They're no longer endangered, okay? So I bring this up because we have fucking bald eagles that fly all over our house all the time.
Yeah.
Usually when the baby's out, I might add, which is a little concerning.
Yeah.
But we always see these fucking birds attacking the eagles.
Yes.
Like something out of the Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. So that's what Jericho needs is some fucking crows to go after Vanguard.
Crows are nasty.
They're very intelligent.
They're very intelligent. They'll attack in packs, and they know that they are in competition with the eagles for food.
It's possible that the crows are more intelligent than this Chris Jericho character on AEW.
I don't think there's any doubt.
Yes.
There's no doubt in my mind. I used to work at the University of Washington Bothell campus. And one day, we were cleaning out some room, and we're just taking loads and loads of trash out to the dumpster. We're doing this for like a half hour, just taking loads out to the dumpster. And my buddy and I, we dump a load at the dumpster. We look up, and there's a bald eagle circling very, very low. And we are blown away and very impressed. We're just looking up and like, oh, man, look at that. It's gorgeous and majestic. And our boss comes out. What are you guys looking at? Oh, look at the beautiful eagle. And he looks up, he nods, and he walks back in without saying anything. And so we follow him in there. So we say, "Oh, Larry, you're not much of a nature fan." He says, "Dude, I'm from Alaska. We chase eagles away from our garbage." So there you go. Different perspective on the eagle there.
Sure, yeah.
So the other key thing about this Jericho segment and what made it so great, especially, I think about it on both, especially on NXT, but most matches on these shows overstayed their welcome and went longer than they needed to go. This promo went exactly as long as it needed to go. Chris Jericho cut his wacky promo in the hot tub for 2 minutes. He saw Vanguard 1. He talked to Vanguard 1 for 1 minute. Vanguard 1 tried to flee. He released the hounds. They made their point. It was done.
You know what it was? It was like a Jericho match. There's that one more thing that needed to be there than was there.
And it didn't go any longer. Nothing got dragged out. Nothing got delayed. Nothing got stalled for no reason. They did a skit that went exactly as long as it needed to go. It was just perfect. Just perfect. The TNT Championship Tournament starts next week with Shawn Spears versus Cody. And here, I guess, is where they announced the empty arena match, or at least the first time I realized it was an empty arena match between Hager and Moxley in 2 weeks. We have a video of the Young Bucks' house. Nick Jackson is still not ready to go back to the ring, so they have brought the ring to his house. They've set up a ring on the tennis court. It is literally Pro Wrestling 101. He is running the ropes. He is doing some tumbles. He is doing tackle drop down. And they're talking about, Matt says, watching Nick drive off in that ambulance, one of the scariest moments of my life. Nick says, I'm feeling better now. I still don't know what happened. I have no memory of being taken out. Return date is hard to say, but given what happened to me and given what's happening in the world, I've come to really just appreciate family, happiness, and health. And that's what really matters. And they are walking away from the ring, and Matt asks, how do you feel? Nick says, pretty good. Matt says, you ready to get back in there? And Nick says, not yet. More to come.
That was good. Simple.
It was simple.
That's their backyard, by the way.
I'm sure
there's a ring there.
I'm sure it is.
On a tennis court.
Yeah.
Things have been worse.
I've wrestled in much worse environments than a ring in a tennis court. Sammy Guevara and Shawn Spears versus Cody and Darby Allin. And not their fault. They're doing what they can with the crew they have, but this started with 23 minutes to go. And this is an example of things that didn't need to go this long. They tried to find stuff to make it memorable without just being out there for 23 minutes killing time. Sammy is flirting with Brandy, who stole his phone. I assume at some point, maybe in this tournament, I guess, we'll get Sammy versus Cody. There's a big double dive spot. The heels cut off Darby, and then they began to bet each other with cash that they carry in their trunks to see who could suplex Darby for the longest time. I like this gambling addict gimmick that Shawn Spears has now. And my theory is it's going to lead, he'll be so deeply in debt, he will have to start betting against himself and throwing matches.
Oh,
He'll be taking dives in these pro wrestling matches.
I did love the spot in this match where they were betting over the suplex.
Yes.
I need to keep track, but it appears, if I recall correctly, that he is a constant loser in these gambling battles.
He is certainly, I haven't kept track of it down, but it sure seems like he's losing more than he wins. So Cody gets a hot tag and runs wild, passes his belt to Brandy, leads to a big four-way, but then Cody gets thrown into the heels in the audience. They all jump him, including Britt hitting her with a shoe, or hitting him with her shoe, I should say. Darby gets a hot tag. There's this big parade of dives and moves outside the ring. Darby climbs the pole, that random pole that Trent got powerbombed into. And as the heels are beating up Cody, you suddenly hear, "Hey, asshole!" And Darby falls out of the sky with a coffin drop onto the two of them. There's a couple of near falls. Spears demands a chair, but then before he can use it, Darby takes it away. But then before he can use it, Sammy takes it away. Darby is distracted. Spears pins him with a roll-up. So now you've got something going on with Spears and Darby, who are both in this championship tournament, and then who knows what's going on down the road. A perfectly fun main event that built to a couple things. It builds to Darby and Spears, because Spears has pinned him. Darby wants to get his pin back. He can do. And then afterwards, Cody tries to comfort Darby. Darby is pissed. He turns around and levels Cody. And I thought, okay, well, they're building Darby and Cody in the tournament. And then I remember, no, it's Darby and Shawn Spears in the first, or excuse me, Cody and Shawn Spears in the first round. So they set up a bunch of different matches here that may or may not happen in this tournament. And if they don't happen in the tournament, you can do them after the tournament. So
yes,
good on them.
There's nothing that's done that is not going to pay off down the road.
Yes.
Unless there's like some sort of disaster.
It may not be next week or the week after that, but they're sowing seeds for a bunch of different matches, which is what you're supposed to do.
Yes. If you pay attention, you will be rewarded.
Yes.
What a fucking novel concept. I don't know how this is going to play out. May play out in the tournament, may not play out in the tournament, but it will pay off at some point down the road. So there you go. I think it's a pretty easy vote this week.
Time to vote. I am voting for All Elite Wrestling.
Yeah, AEW was the better show, and really by far the least depressing of the two shows.
Yeah. Anyway, we also watched AEW Dynamite April 8th, 2020. We opened with the Jake Roberts promo. It's so great. I'm so happy.
The greatest. Dude, this guy's going to, I don't know if he's going to win, but when they do Best on Interviews in the Observer Awards for 2020, like, Jake the fucking Snake Roberts is going to come out of nowhere, and there's no way he's not top 5.
Pro wrestling is so much better with a healthy Jake Roberts contributing to it.
No shit?
Yes,
that is true.
So Jake sits down, and all these, they work better for him. A lot of guys would struggle with this format, but he sits down in a chair, and he looks into the camera, and he just speaks what's on his mind. He asks, would you jump in front of a train? Would you jump out of a plane without a parachute? Would you stand in a ring with Lance Archer and think you've got a prayer of winning? Because all three of those, you end up in the same position. Done. His Marco stunt last week, you had to prove you were willing, had to prove you were a man. Marco, sometimes it's better to be silent and thought a fool than to speak or take action and remove all doubt. You're an idiot. And he says Cody's going to face Shawn Spears tonight.